Another Wednesday's come and gone, and I've got some comics. Let's talk about them. Hey, welcome to 9 Panel Grid. This week, we've seen Kryptonian prison breaks, hypocritical lawmen, and life model decoy existential crises. But we're going to kick things off this week with Action Comics 1079, written by Mark Waid with artwork by Michael Shelfer. This one continues the trend of Action Comics kind of bogging me down, really. Um, the artwork on this one in particular was a change from Clayton Henry, and I have to say, I kind of miss Clayton Henry on the book. The artwork on this leaned way cartoonier than I would be accustomed to, especially for the story that Mark Waid is trying to tell here, which really revolves around the Phantom Zone being completely destroyed and broken, and all of the inmates have now been released out into the world, and they're doing exactly what they did to get them put in the Phantom Zone to begin with. This just feels like the CW version of Superman, whereas the Superman proper book being written by Joshua Williamson feels like the movie version, the big epic scope version. So, in juxtaposition, like when I have to compare those two together, Action Comics really just feels like it's being left in the dust here, looking at like the grandiose scale that we're dealing with in Superman. All in all, I'm not sure if it's the weekly schedule. I don't know if it's the creative team changes that are happening within this book, but I have to say it's really starting to get pretty stale. Next up, let's talk Amazing Spider Man 63, written by Justina Ireland with artwork by Gleb Magnikloff. This was a surprising issue, as I thought for sure that when the creative team had shifted over from Joe Kelly over to a new artist and a new writer, that there would be some kind of, I don't know, letdown, something that was going to bog this story down, considering we only had 2 issues already with Joe Kelly. Surprisingly, it wasn't a letdown. This was a kind of a reintroduction of all of the past events in Spider-Man's life that have been truly tragic, as he's been like kind of really drug through these events in time, knowing that he can't change them. He can't do anything to make anything better than what has already happened here. So all can do is really live with the pain of those moments, as one of the minions of Sidorak is kind of having their way with him as they go through the trials and tribulations that he's been challenged with as the champion of Earth now. The artwork change on here was surprisingly really good as well, because it feels like there was like a combination basically between like the John Romita Jr. approach of the Spider-Man character and the Humberto Ramos character. It was cartoony, but it stayed within the archetypes, I feel like, with Romita and what he did, which I mean that's those are classic, artists for the Amazing Spider-Man runs that they've had. So to combine those two together, it really worked tremendously well. The story itself, I have to say though, it leaned on some easy solutions here, quite frankly. It leans on some very Bill and Ted-esque type of solutions here with some timey-wimey stuff. But it was also kind of a fun adventure that we had here, and I loved the character moments that Peter got, both in the past when he was dealing with the moments, plus in the future as he's coming to the realizations of maybe some of the things that he's been letting fall to the wayside with all of the responsibility that falls on his shoulders. So, all in all, again, Amazing Spider Man, since the change and the 8 deaths of Peter Parker, it's been pretty solid. All right, next up is Conan the Barbarian number 17, written by Jim Zub with artwork by Danica Brine. So this was an oddly pedestrian issue of Conan the Barbarian. I don't mean pedestrian in the way that the crafting of the book actually was, but it was pedestrian in the events that happened, as we've kind of gone through a couple different arcs of the Conan the Barbarian proper series, and we're just getting out of the event of the Battle of the Blackstone. And this was really a breather issue. This was time that we can spend with Conan as they are just kind of getting into ports. They're trying to lay low, basically. They're trying to not get too much attention laid upon them as they try to like plot and plan what their next moves are going to be. The artwork change on here has been with Danica Brine, and I have to say she probably brings the cleanest approach to the book that I've seen here, with the previous artists being Roberto Della Torre and Doug Braithwaite. So I really like the different approach that's taken on here. I think it was very fitting for the story. The rendering was really nice on this one. again, I think it was kind of the issue that we needed after coming off of the different arcs that we've seen here for Conan. So while it was light on action and light on like all of the eventful things that we've seen from Conan, I think it was appropriate for the time and place that it is. And this is going to set up the further adventures as we're going to be moving forward. And with our next book, let's talk FML number 2, written by Kelly Sue DeConnick with artwork by David Lopez. I think I figured out this book. And I didn't get it with issue 1, and I didn't know what direction they were trying to take it and who the protagonist really was, but I think I finally got it. With issue number 2, we kind of really stay with the mother character for most of the issue, and we get to see some of the tribulations that she goes through. And I'm starting to figure out that FML kind of plays like that pop song that you think is really happy and joyful, but when you listen to the lyrics, it's incredibly morose and sorrowful and sad, but it doesn't sound that way. That's what this book is like. There's a lot of really heavy, weighty things that are being dealt with in this book, such as active shooter activities that have to take place in schools nowadays. But they do so through a lens that is kind of like it's serious, but it's doing so in a way that makes it so that it's not really bearing down on it or trying to be preachy or bogging it down. It's a reality that we're living with. The thing I don't get about this book is the occult, supernatural aspect of it. I don't know how that is playing into everything that's happening because it's being dealt with in such a nonchalant manner in this book, which makes for fun because you would think it would be such this grandiose thing and it's not. So it's kind of like a thing that would provoke a chuckle, but I don't know if that's the thing that's intended to happen here. I assume it is, but we really need to develop more of an understanding of what all this means within this world as the child of what our main character is, the mother, has really turned into this monstrous beast that is totally in control of their body and actions and everything, but they look wildly different than they did previously. So all in all, I think I'm figuring out this book, and through figuring it out, I had a heck of a lot more fun with it. Next up, let's talk Kaya number 23, written and drawn by Wes Craig. So the ominous premonitions that we've kind of come to see from the previous issue as they've gone into the haunted city, well, they've come to bear fruit as everything that could go wrong does go wrong in this. Jin gets captured. Razel and Kaya are separated. We don't know who heroes are. We don't know who villains are. And we get a vision from the future as Kaya is trying to help her younger self navigate the murky waters of what is actually about to happen. I love that we got to kind of see premonitions of the future because we've already had an issue that took us way into the future and we know that we're leading down that path. So to see little glimpses now, we know we're getting closer and closer and closer to those things taking place. As always, Wes Craig's visual storytelling is absolutely stunning. It's some of my favorite amongst comic creators today. This issue shows that stunningly. I really enjoy what's happening here. This is a quick, breezy read, as most issues of Kaya are, but that's not a detriment to the story. In fact, I think that makes it more accessible than most comic books can be because you can pick up an issue of Kaya basically wherever you are, and it does a great job at kind of telling you what happened previously, where you're at, and it helps you get to the place where you need to go. So overall, Kaya was super enjoyable. And with a new number 1, let's talk Laura Kinney Wolverine number 1, written by Erica Schultz with artwork by Giada Belvisio. This was a really formulaic feeling issue as we've kind of been delivered this same type of story, not only through the history and the gamut of characters like this, but also very recently within the new relaunch of the X titles as it is. We're dealing with Laura Kinney as she is trying to help liberate mutants as now they're part of the greater society, and some of that greater society is trying to use that for their own nefarious purposes. Sounds very familiar to an issue that we just recently reviewed here. So, with that being said, it wasn't anything new, it wasn't anything bold for this character, and they're also trying to tie it in with NYX, as there's a lot of interaction between people like Miss Marvel and one of the Cuckoo twins, where I kind of don't want that. I really just want to see Laura be a loner, similar to like when we see Logan as a loner. I want her detached from the greater X-Men, because I think that that's where we're finding the greatest success with these X titles, is when you get them away from an X team and get them kind of acting as their own individuals. That's what I'm excited to see. This really didn't deliver for me on that aspect. The other part is that Marvel definitely has a house style for their artwork right now. And what it really boils down to is either you're Pepe Larraz or you're like a version of Pepe Larraz. And this very much is a version of Pepe Larraz. It's not the thing that you really want, it's the discount version. And the artwork is sound. It fits. It's not bad by any means, but I just feel like there's so much opportunity with this character and with this comic that totally missed the mark for me. So overall, it might be worth diving into, but I don't know. It's really gonna have to do something big and bold to keep me around. Speaking of independent X titles, let's talk Phoenix number 6, written by Stephanie Phillips with artwork by Marco Reina. So most of the time when I talk about an art change, it's really a detriment to the issue, and it kind of throws you out of it. This did have an art change from our normal series artist, but I have to say it was a fun and exciting change. I really liked the fact that we had the reins, kind of handed off to a new artist. And Marco's approach here is very reminiscent of like Federico Vincentini, their work on the Miles Morales Spider-Man book. It was fun, it was energetic, it was exciting, and it was the perfect thing that we got to see for this issue, as it revolves all around Phoenix and Nova, Richard Rider, taking out an armada of ships all under the order of Thanos. So it's his Black Order, and they just like kind of wreck town on all of these people here. They take everyone out in glorious, stupendous action set pieces, and they are rendered perfectly. The issue was really exciting. We got a lot of action. We got a lot of character details, as Jean is really trying to come to terms with the fact that she is trying to relinquish more of the Phoenix to be able to empower herself and empower the Phoenix Force itself to make her even more powerful than she is right now. But she's also dealing with the fact that we have other characters that are trying to repress certain things about themselves, like the pain and remorse that they have caused. And she's trying to show that she's had to go through those trials and tribulations herself as well. I really like the balance of those character moments, especially knowing that most of Jean's regret and remorse comes largely by way of when she was under the control of the Dark Phoenix and she destroyed an entire planet. So obviously that looms large over that, but it shows the character growth that can happen when a writer takes over and can look to the past and mine the past for certain things that are going to enrich the future, rather than just leaning on them and telling the same story over and over. We get co-star characters that show up in this, as well as the future issues are going to really revolve around Thanos and his minions, basically at this point going after Jean and vice versa. So I'm really excited to see how that team dynamic works outside of the X-Men, because again, I think this is the most successful thing about this book, is that it is adjacent to the X-Men. It is completely removed from them, only to kind of poke its head in every once in a great while. Next up, let's talk Skin Police number 3, written by Jordan Thomas with artwork by Daniel Gates. So we kind of do a little bit of a flashback and a flash forward in this issue, as we get to spend time with our main character, the Skin Police lawman, as we look into the past and we see just how black and white he viewed the world at a certain piece of time, where a dupe was a dupe and you had to put them down no matter what the consequences and circumstances, because you knew the outcome of what would happen. And there was no remorse for anyone that was involved in the circumstances. So they go through a case, and his partner has different viewpoints, but when we come to the present time, that partner is also basically incapacitated. There's something that happened that we're not really privy to quite yet, but something caused, her to fall by the wayside, and something caused our main character, Lawman, to maybe, I don't know, view the world in a slightly different way. He still does what he does, but there's more to the story there, as I think that he's been impacted by the propensity of maybe a dupe being in his life as well. The artwork continues to be fantastic as it leans on some of those like European style approaches in the book, and it fits just absolutely perfectly. And again, the storyline continues to flow and evolve in natural, progressive ways that I really enjoy. Nothing feels jarring, nothing feels overly, I don't know, pushed on the book. The pacing is very nice on this. I really like what this book is doing, and especially when we get to spend time with the dupes themselves as their resistance is rising and starting to take action. That's when this book is going to get really exciting because within the next issue, I would anticipate those players are going to come to blows here. So overall, Skin Police continue to be thoroughly entertaining. All right, let's talk Transformers number 15, written by Daniel Warren Johnson with artwork by Jorge Corona. So we're going to start with that because Jorge Corona is back on this book. And art changes have never really been something that has bogged down this book. But now seeing Jorge Corona come back and draw more images of these great creations, man, it was really exciting. In fact, there are certain pages within this book, particularly Starscream's reemergence in his somewhat new form. They were absolutely awesome. It was really fun and exciting to see those things play out in the way that Jorge Corona can uniquely put them on the page. Danny Warren Johnson continues to write an emotionally resonant story here, which is crazy to think of because we're dealing with, toys. We're dealing with ideas that were created to sell toys, but that doesn't stop him from crafting a story that really revolves around loss, really revolves around what it means to be at war, and really what it means to, I don't know, make hard choices. The Autobots and Decepticons at this point have all kind of split into factions, as some people are loyal to the things that Cybertron needs, and some people are loyal to the needs of the Earth and the things that are happening right now, as some of the Decepticons are mining them and trying to basically destroy anyone that's going to stop them from gaining new energon. So I really like that each faction is kind of being split and torn and stretched in different directions because it makes it really fascinating and interesting to see how these things are all going to play out with, I don't know, all of the different players, that are going to be going at war with one another and how maybe uneasy alliances are going to be made. All in all, this continues to be a really fun and exciting book. And now that the artwork change has come back to Corona, it makes it even more exciting to see those because the imagery on here is completely kinetic. Next up, we have Ultimate X-Men number 10, written and drawn by Peach Momoko. So the many converging stories within Ultimate X-Men, which kind of revolve around what our main character was, Hisako, and the suicides that were happening at our school, and the children of the Atom cult. All of these things are slowly but surely closing in on one another, and we're starting to get at a fever pitch now where everything is coming to heads. This issue was a really fast paced issue, but there was a lot of things that happened that were driving the story forward here, particularly some of the control that maybe the Cult of X has over Hisako, and maybe our Shadow King character has over her as well. But we're starting to see that mutantdom, specifically in this area of the Ultimate Universe's world, they're starting to see that the cult, there's more to the cult here, and basically mutantdom is seen at a wider scope now that Hisako's powers have been witnessed on camera and everyone has been visually seeing them. The cult kind of lets out some of their mutants and they expose themselves. So now everything is out in the open. Everything can happen that needs to happen. We're about a year into this world too. So we're at the point now where big things should absolutely be happening. So overall, it's starting to get to the point where action is taking place. The plot is being pushed forward and it's right at the right time where that needs to happen because this book has always kind of been peaks and valleys. We're at a peak right now, but we need to remain up at that level here because there needs to be some kind of resolution within this first year of the story that we were delivered within the first couple issues. Next up, we have Uncanny X-Men number 7, written by Gail Simone with artwork by David Marquez. So this is very much a retelling of the story that we've already been delivered within the pages of X-Men number 8, but it's from the Louisiana Uncanny X-Men team's perspective, as they have team members that have been taken prisoner at the Grey Malkin Institute, and we kind of see their viewpoint and how they come into the fray as Scott's team is already there trying to rescue the people, and they know that that wasn't the plan necessarily that Scott wanted. They wanted people to stay back while they did the dirty work, basically. That didn't sit well with Rogue, as she felt an allegiance, an alliance, and a responsibility to the people, her people, that were captured there. So everything kind of really culminates in both teams meeting here. And of course, it's X-Men, so there's always going to be an alliance there. They didn't necessarily come to blows, but there's an uneasy alliance right now because at the very least, they have a common goal: get their people out. The means of doing so, that's not necessarily where they see eye to eye. All in all, if you're reading both titles, this isn't going to deliver anything new and exciting and bold that you didn't already get from the other issue. However, it is nice to see the perspective from a different viewpoint than what we got in X-Men number 8. And with our runner-up pick of the week, let's talk Ultimate Universe 1 Year In, number 1, written by Dennis Camp with artwork by Jonas Scharf. So this is really a culmination of looking at where we are at in the Ultimate Universe 1 year in. The title is not misleading. We spend a lot of time here with the character of Nick Fury in this Ultimate Universe, which is very much more akin to the 616 version of Nick Fury. And we spend most of the issue, if not all of the issue, inside of his head as he is basically coming to terms with what has happened throughout the culmination of his entire life and the role he has played, to the point where basically where he compromised his morals and his viewpoint to more align with the maker and the maker's world and the terrible things that he's had to do that. Well, now he is basically the speaker of the cabal of people who are controlling this universe here, with the maker being caught in the city. And he's kind of devised a plan that hopefully, possibly, can, I don't know, rectify some of the mistakes that have been made previously. There's a lot of twists and a lot of turns in this issue, but we really get to see the depth of the changes between the 616 universe and the Ultimate Universe. But not only that, but also the Ultimate Universe as we saw it previously, and the Ultimate Universe as we see it now under the Maker's vision. We also get to see just how maniacal and evil this cabal of individuals are that have ownership over different parts of the land within the Ultimate Universe, and just some of the really twisted things that they can do. This was a really fun commentary like issue about the universe itself, where we could be going, and just how truly terrible it can be for our heroes. And with our top comic of the week, let's talk Batman Dark Patterns number 1, written by Dan Waters with artwork by Hayden Sherman. So this is like a year 3 era look back at Batman at that time, as people like Jim Gordon haven't like risen through the ranks to become commissioner yet. They're still kind of working under those uneasy alliances. And Batman right now is working towards stopping the serial killer that they don't quite have a pattern for yet. All we know is that they're kind of targeting people who are alone and who have had some kind of tragedy happen within their life that took loved ones away. Hayden Sherman's artwork on this is absolutely fantastic, as he's kind of developed this new style recently, but also it's like a chameleon like style, as it's similar to the work he's doing within the pages of Absolute Wonder Woman, but it's also completely different than other things that we've seen before. It's almost taking like a Paul Pope like I don't know, approach to the artwork here, whereas the composition that they're putting forward is absolutely 100% pure Sherman, though. Dan Waters is also playing with a torturous villain, and not only a torturous villain, but a tortured villain, which makes it a different type of person that Batman needs to take on, as simply thinking through the problem isn't necessarily going to solve the issue, and punching the problem away is absolutely not going to solve the issue either. It's making Batman really kind of I don't know, think about his approach more so than the traditional villain does. And I really appreciate that because I think that's when Batman books are their best. When you get a challenging person that really makes Batman and Bruce toy with everything that really makes him Batman and makes him something more than the one-dimensional character that sometimes he can be. So overall, I think Dan and Hayden are doing fantastic work on this. I can't wait to see where this like evolves and grows to, because right now this was arguably my favorite Batman book that's come out in quite a while. So that's what I've got for you this week, but I'm more curious. What did you get and what were your thoughts? Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe, and be part of the panel. Leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you next week.